Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Lock Shop on a Friday afternoon, kicking off your weekend. Us and Coolbet's Jake Bolin Moss in today. Of course, Dusty is right here in the peg, getting ready to call Bombers Ticats tonight on TSN. We will get into the CFL. We do have our Lock Shop partner parlay, which is still alive because it's starting with tonight's game. We'll touch on that. The other lines in the Canadian Football League. We've got college football week 0 beginning. I know JBM is all over that. Take a look at the NFL as well, and some interesting stuff over at Coolbet for NHL fans as well, which we'll get to. But there's no way we're not starting with last night's game in the Canadian Football League. And Jake, you took it in. Looked like actually a pretty good crowd for the Argos. Lots of green in the stadium as always. But I tweeted during the fourth quarter, every CFL game is insane. And then it finished on a walk-off rouge for the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, listen, Huss, I know you were texting me. You were trying to mush the Rough Riders by saying, they're off to a nice start here. And Brett had a couple kicks. I don't know. Yeah, but you still got your win. I had a money line, Huss. That killed me last night. Listen, I think we all know I'm not the biggest CFL guy. I don't watch a ton of CFL football, so I don't want to sit here and pretend like I know, I'm the all-knower of CFL football. But I'll tell you what, ending a game on a rouge, it has now become, it's the biggest sports story on Twitter today. Every football, Barstool's picked it up. Like, I don't know if it's just like I'm sure CFL purists love it, and like that's the way the game's meant to be. But I don't know, something about a missed field goal that goes out the back of the end zone for a point to win a football game doesn't feel right to me.
They could have punted if they wanted to.
Right.
I mean, it just crushed it through. I mean, it's the uniqueness of the Canadian football game. I mean, it goes back to rugby. I mean, there's a little bit of Aussie rules football involved in it. I mean, at the end of the day, the game itself is American football, but there's some unique Canadian rules. And I'll tell you, obviously everyone was talking about the walk-off rouge, but the game itself was absolutely ridiculous. What was it? 3 goal line stands that the Riders stopped the Argos on? And then
three different series of goal line stands. It was probably like 10 goal line stands when it was all said and done. It was crazy.
3 different drives that ended up. And then, listen, for all the good that Trevor Harris did last week with the Montreal Alouettes, playing brilliantly, listen, they had a terrible special teams game and they lost. It was the exact opposite. Brett Lawler, shout out to him. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on him going into that game last night after what happened last week. He was nails. He got the job done. And Trevor Harris, with a 13-point lead, needed to take care of the football. And he didn't do that and really allowed the Argos right back in. And listen, the Riders, because of those turnovers and the picks by Harris, the Riders were actually fortunate to be up at halftime, even though they were up 13-0 with just 3 minutes left. I mean, it wasn't a very well-played game. I thought that Chad Kelly was off a little bit. I mean, he was missing some of his throws. And listen, that's part of the reason why I like Saskatchewan yesterday, in that, much like we saw Nathan Rourke the week before, there's a little bit of time that it takes for guys that haven't been practicing with their teams to get with it. But it was I mean, every game in the Canadian Football League this year seems to have some weird quirk, crazy plays, back and forth. And from a betting standpoint, listen, I was feeling pretty good that I got that +3 early last night. Obviously, it ended up not mattering because it was a 1-point game. But in a game like that, it speaks to, just from a betting perspective overall, how important a half point or a point can be on some of these lines on games that are really tight. The Riders have to be kicking themselves, though. I mean, they covered the spread, so everyone that was on Saskatchewan gets their money. But that was another huge opportunity for them to, kind of get a little bit of a leg up on the rest of the West. And again, it is so wide open. We'll see what happens with BC. They've lost 4 in a row. The Bombers, who were basically left for dead a few weeks ago, could actually be a game out of first place, or a half game out of first place, I guess, by the end of tonight and the end of the weekend, depending on what happens with BC. So bring it on. The good old CFL always delivers. And by the way, that picture I just had, the guy named Huss on the Riders, number 46.
Yeah, I wish we could pull it up.
Cracks me up every time. And then he was sitting there with our guy, Coolbet, the ambassador, Brett Lawther. So it was good. What was the weather like last night for it? It looked pretty nice. And I guess the CNE going on, crush some corn dogs and some mini donuts.
Yeah, I stayed away from the corn dogs, but the CNE's going on right now. It was busy down at the game, and you could really feel the momentum shift into the second half there. Like, it started off, Saskatchewan was taking care of business, taking care of the football, get out to an early lead, and then Harris makes a couple mistakes, and things start swinging back the other way. But it felt like neither team really wanted to win that game when it was all said and done. Like, the fact that Toronto could have been up a few scores, Huss, at one point, the fact that they just kept getting stuffed at the goal line, some drop passes, too, from their receivers. Like, I thought Chad Kelly actually didn't look as bad as I expected him to look coming back off the suspension. But, yeah, it was a tough one. I had Saskatchewan money line sitting there, and and even, they get the pick late. There was 2.5 minutes left when they got that pick. They were up 3 at the time, unable to get any more points on the board. Give the ball back to Toronto, and then they take a bad penalty on a return. Actually, it was a decent return from Alford, and they took a bad penalty that moved them right back into terrible position. Korzak's got a punt from the back of the end zone, and we knew a field position wasn't going to be great when that happened. So, that Rouge rule is a big talk on Twitter right now. I saw a big thread by Farhal talking about how, maybe rules need to change in the final 3 minutes. But the CFL is a CFL, Huss. At the end of the day, it is what it is. We all know the rules, and, you got to play to the rules. And field position is a big part of the CFL, especially late in the game. So all credit to Toronto in finding a way to win that game. Listen. This is my first year as a Riders fan. It's been quite the roller coaster to start.
Well, just wait until next week when we invade Regina for the Labor Day Classic, which is
actually
absolutely bananas.
I should say I texted Brett after the game, and I was like, "Hey, man, good to see you bounce back." And we all know the season doesn't start till Labor Day anyways, so season starts next week.
Hey, listen, they're still in a really good spot, and part of the reason why I still believe in the Bombers and the Riders, actually even above BC with their great quarterbacking and the rest of the West, is those two defenses. And I mean, Saskatchewan's defense put on a show on the goal line. I mean, that just simply doesn't happen in the Canadian.
No, it was incredible.
League. And
they
did it over and over and over again. Incredibly frustrating for Dinwiddie and the Argos. But again, speaking of frustrating, Corey Mace has got to be just livid. I mean, you cannot take a holding penalty on that punt. You can't take that sack the way they did. And I mean, to move from the 30-yard line back to your own one and then have to punt it with 30 seconds. I mean, wherever, their kick coverage actually was good on Gennari and Grant. But just the distance that ball was traveled, I mean, he basically could have taken a fair catch and they would have still been able to attempt a field goal or at least get it through. So
it was crazy too, Huss. I watched the wind from when we got there, and they had the Argos banners hanging there for the Grey Cups. The wind was blowing, it was blowing off the water. So it was coming into the stadium from where we were sitting. I don't even know how to explain it. It was blowing north, I guess, is what it would be. It was blowing north to start the game. By the end of the game, it was blowing south. So Korzak's kicking into the wind, and Liam's really he's sitting there probably licking his chops because he's like, anywhere this ball ends up, even if they don't return the ball, he's going to be in a good spot. And like we said, he didn't even need to get the field goal. He just needed the Rouge to finish that one off. So.
Let's get to we'll quickly hit on the latest lines from the CFL, because we did have a little movement. As I said, when we were doing the show yesterday, Bombers were 9.5. That one went pretty quickly. By the time we were getting into the line segment on WST, it was up to 10.5, and that's where the game sits right now. Bombers a massive minus 588 favor on the money line. Ticats plus 14. Still holding at BC -1 for this BC Ottawa game, although the BC money lines come down from -125 to -118, and Ottawa, which was even money plus 100, is now -103. the interesting movement, and man, it would have been nice to know this before we put the partner parlay together, was the Elks actually are getting an extra point right now from 6 to 7. And again, that's a significant point. So the Elks getting a full converted touchdown right now in Montreal. And the Elks are part of our partner parlay at plus 6.5 right now. I'll get to the parlays in just a minute before we move on to some other topics. But for tonight's game, and I think this might be where I go for the play of the day today on the Coolbet socials. Brady Oliveira, rushing yards, over under 85.5. It's a big number. But, man, the way the Bomber offensive line's playing and the way Brady's going right now, I think it's highly likely that he gets triple digits. So I'm going to be on the over in this one. Obviously game script can change things, but I mean, if you believe that, the Bomber defense holds them into that game, the offense will get going. If they have a lead, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they're not looking to score 50. They're looking to hold the ball for 50 minutes, much like they did the last time they were at home. The time of possession against BC was 42-18. Listen, if the Bombers can continue doing what they're doing, Brady's going to get a lot of touches. He only had 10 carries last week against the BC Lions, but went for almost 8 yards a carry. I think he's more likely to go from 10 to probably 20 carries tonight. And if that's the case, I think he comfortably goes over. So love the Brady Oliveira over 85.5. Receiving yards for tonight's game. What do we got here? Kenny Lawler's number is 65.5. We've got Nick Dembski at 49.5. Ontario Wilson, 49.5. And then for the Ticats, Quandre Smith, 38.5. Shamar Bridges, 61.5. And Tim White, 53.5. Passing props for tonight. Zach Caleros, over under 285.5. I think I might actually lean under on that one. And it's not out of respect for the Hamilton defense. It's the fact that I really think the Bombers will control this game and be able to really work it on the ground. And I don't think they're going to need to have Zach go for 300 yards to win this football game. So I think I like the under on the Zach Caleros. Passing touchdowns over 1.5 is plus 112. I'm going to stay away from that one. That one is a little tricky. The Bombers do like to run the football close up in. And, we know that they haven't been great converting so far this year, but this could be an opportunity on the other side of things to really have an explosive offensive performance and get humming before the trip to Regina next week. That being said, I'm going to, as far as passing, I will get on the under 285.5. Bo Levi's numbers, 278.5. I mean, if you look at what the Bombers have just done to Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams, pretty hard to envision that number being over. Unders on both quarterbacks, I think, for tonight's game. TD scores. Chris Streveler, the short yardage machine, minus 182. Brady Oliveira is minus 185. Kenny Lawler plus 105. Other Bombers, Dembski plus 130. Ontario Wilson plus 175. And Lucky Whitehead makes an appearance. He'll be returning kicks. I'm not sure how much he's going to be in the actual offense right now, but you can get lucky as well. So there are all your Bomber props tonight. I think my favorite is still, though, Brady Oliveira. And we'll go from there. So, Jake, we're doing CFL football right now. We had some NFL preseason. By the way, shout out to Zach or whoever put together the thumbnail. Creed Humphrey, my guy, 4 years, $72 million. Best center in the game now that Jason Kelsey is retired. Big one for the Chiefs. They finished up their preseason last night. We've got a little bit to wait. We got fantasy drafts and whatnot the next little while for NFL, college football, week 0. Fill us in, for people that are casuals, why is it week 0? Is it really starting? Does it actually start the following week? And what's on the slate for this week?
Yeah, it's almost like a preseason for bettors. They're only going to give us 4 games. A couple of them are smaller level schools. We do get one solid game in the first game of the day. It's actually happening over in Ireland. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the college football tab here. Florida State, Georgia Tech will be happening over in Ireland. Yeah, so that's at noon. That's a noon kickoff tomorrow. Florida State right now, 10.5-point favorites against Georgia Tech. I think they're ranked in the top 10, maybe 12th. I don't have the number in front of me. But I'm looking at the board here. There's not a lot to choose from. Even if you go to the NCAA tab, you'll see the two games there: Florida State, Georgia Tech, SMU, Nevada, and then you'll see at the top there it says NCAA Division I extra games. So there's a couple extra games on tomorrow, one at 4:00, and then a Hawaii game. We all love a good Hawaii game. You lose a couple games earlier in the day, and you need a little chase at night.
Are you seeing the number on this Hawaii game?
Oh yeah, 40-point favorites. Welcome to college
40
football.
Against the Delaware State Hornets. Is that even a legit school?
Yeah, it's probably like an FCS. So there's FBS and then there's FCS, and usually those teams are a little less known. But you schedule cupcakes early, right? You get out some good wins usually early on in the season. Get out to a 3-0, 4-0 start, and then your conference schedule comes into play. So, I took a quick look at the board. Obviously, not a ton to choose from. My money this week's going to go to SMU, though. I'm going to take the points, minus 26 right now. It's a pretty big number. I'm just looking at the way the line's been moving, kind of moving in SMU's favor. We haven't seen the total really move a big ton, so seems like the sharps are like an SMU. We're seeing the number move. Who knows if it's going to continue to move, but it's not a bad number in terms of football. We're talking football numbers. We're talking about 4 touchdowns or, 3 touchdowns and a couple kicks to get that 27-point plus win for SMU. So I got SMU minus 26 against Nevada tomorrow. That'll be my one pick for week 0. Maybe we want to talk about the parlays, Huss. I just thought about that after CFL Talk. We do have a couple combo cards. Right?
Yeah, we'll definitely get there. I just do want to say I think Florida State is – like last year they were amazing and they did get screwed. Everything that I've read and seen beforehand has Florida State like getting a good ranking almost because of what happened last year. Right. No one expects them to be that good. I am going to take the points with Georgia Tech for a little action in that Ireland game, which is 11 o'clock our time, 10 o'clock out in Edmonton. And then next week, we really get going. I guess on the 29th, there's even some Thursday games. Carolina and Jacksonville State, Minnesota, the Gophers. I went to that Minnesota-Michigan game last year at that TD Bank Stadium. Great spot to watch a game in the Twin Cities. You see Michigan State, Wisconsin. You're on the under Wisconsin wins, aren't you?
I did have that out on my Twitter. Patty's also been doing a little thread, some of his favorite futures. There's a ton of futures over at Coolbet. If you're a college football fan or you got a team you want to back this year, we've got, national championship winner, Heisman winner. We got regular season win totals for basically every Division I team, conference champions, and then to make the playoff, which is an interesting one because it's a 12-team playoff this year. If you remember, Huss, it's the expanded playoff.
Oh yeah,
it's exciting times.
Well, let's check those out for a minute. Let's just look at some of the numbers. But as you mentioned, just before we completely get away from the CFL, we do have a couple exclusives up. We stayed away from last night's game and kept our partner parlay to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday games. So we've got the Bombers at minus 9.5, which is nice. It's the number's 10.5 right now. BC Lions on the money line, and the Elks, I should say, the Edmonton Elks. Let's not go there.
Don't start.
Yeah, plus 6.5, and that one plus 565. Nice boost up to plus 645. And then, of course, you always love for the community. If you don't feel too good about that BC game, you can get Edmonton plus 6.5, Bombers minus 9.5, boosted to plus 297. So basically 3-1. And those, of course, are right there in the combo cards at the top of the Coolbet page. Got a couple other things kicking around from our futures. The Lock Shop Big Boys with the overs on Kincaid, Bowers, and Ingram. The Young Guns, I like this one. Jaden Daniels, total passing touchdowns over 16.5. And Caleb Williams, total passing yards over 3,400 and a half. And then there's some other, NFL futures that you can get into. And again, we'll be all over that as well next week as the preseason finishes up. But
if you creep over far enough, we do have an NHL futures one as well. Connor McDavid to win the Art Ross and Matthews to win the Rocket Richard, boosted to plus 236. We call it superstardom. So those lines just came out. I know we're going to touch on those in a second here, but just to tease that for our Edmonton and Toronto fans, that's not a bad little number there.
I do love it. Okay, listen, just with the college football starting, and I'm not sure whether these will still be up next week, but for those of you that do like to get into a little bit of NCAA football, Jake just mentioned the futures, and there are a ton of them. National championship winner, Georgia's the favorite, followed by Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon. Who is the preseason favorite for the Heisman? Dylan Gabriel. Wait, do you know where he's from? Which school?
I want to say Oklahoma, but I might be wrong. Guys are constantly moving in the
I know.
Oregon
into the transfer portal. I see Quinn Ewers from Texas is third at 9-1. But anyways, there's a whole bunch of options for the Heisman Trophy. And then if you want to really dive into it, we've got Big 12 odds, ACC odds, Mountain West odds, the American Athletic Conference odds, the Big 10, and then totals for like just about every team. So like you did, Jake, earlier, I mean, you can really go through a team's schedule, kind of see where you like them, games that they think they can have, and then hit up the win totals for the season. But let's kind of focus in on the to make the playoff, because this is what's new this year. And I think it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to get on a couple teams to either make or miss the playoff and follow it that way. No surprise that Georgia is the favorite. But again, with 12 teams, like that, we'll put it this way. Here are your top 12 ranked teams as per the odds. Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, Ole Miss and Alabama, LSU, Michigan, Florida State, and Clemson. But even when you go down, like there's 12 teams in the playoff, and there's only 8 teams that are minus. So, I mean, on that periphery, like kind of teams 9 through 12, there's an opportunity to get plus money if you can find teams that are making it in. I mean, Michigan's going to take a step back this year, obviously, but they're plus 120 to be in it. LSU always seems to find athletes and players. They're plus 115. Alabama, I guess Saban's gone right now, so there are people expecting, but man, that's just such a factory of NFL talent. I have a hard time imagining them not being in it, but I mean, you're really on this, and I know we'll get more into it once the games start going, but is there a team or two that you're particularly high on when it comes to making the playoffs or when it comes to winning the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think one place to look is if you go over to the conference champions and you look at the Big 12, Utah right now is the favorite, plus 325 to win the Big 12. The winner of the Big 12 is going to get into the playoff. Whoever it ends up being, as long as they don't have 4 losses, they're probably getting in with like a 3-2 loss record. Utah right now is plus 225 to make the playoff. And the next team up, if you like Kansas State instead of Utah, they're 3-1. So I think pick a team from the Big 12 that you like to win the conference, and I think take them to make the playoff, because 12 teams are going to get in as long as they don't have 4 losses on the schedule. They should be good to get in. I'd say this is the way to go this year with college football. We've had a ton of conference realignment. Familiarize yourself with who's in whose conference. Texas is now in the SEC. Oregon's now in the Big 10. Like, there's teams that you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't know, Oregon was playing, Ohio State this week. Like, how did that happen? Well, guess what? The Pac-12 is no longer existent. There's 2 teams in the Pac-12. Oregon State and Washington State are the only 2 teams left in the Pac-12. They basically dissolved out into every other conference. So familiarize yourself with who's in whose conference. And then go from there. That's what I'd say. One of the Power 5, or I guess it's the Power 4 now, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, the winners of those conferences are likely getting into the playoff. So, find out who you like in those conferences, then check out the playoff and see if you're getting a better number in terms of them making the playoff. Because they can always get in, even if they lose the conference championship, they can still get in, especially if they're in those power conferences. So it's going to be a different year, Huss. It's going to be a big switch up. We're going to see some teams that we're not used to seeing playing, and it's exciting times for college football. A lot of games coming up.
You know it. Hey, okay, here I want to get into the NHL odds because all of the futures are up, awards and more, and we'll kind of hit that before we finish up the program. But shout out to everybody in chat. And our guy, Zach Ticum, big UFC guy, he's mixing it up here with our guy, Big Maple. And again, Fridays, UFC casuals like me need to figure out where we're putting our $25 bet to get the UFC free $25 bet and get. Again, if you haven't played it before, you opt in, bet $25 on one of the fights, win or lose, you'll have a free $25 bet to play on Monday. So Zach's got Jared Cannonier is plus 234 right now on Coolbet. Neil Magny is plus 550. Those are some great odds for the underdogs. If you're doing the free bet, I'd make some dough on one of those guys. Let's see what Big Maple's got for us. Big underdog weekend in the UFC. The book got the Ultimate Fighter matchups for tomorrow night. Already booked my $25 free bet on Zigamantis moneyline. Also will be big betting Con Olfi moneyline and by sub. He's also got Nunes is listed as plus 175. Might have changed. I'm taking her on a 2-leg with Robert Valentine. So I like it. And Matt's asking me, Huss, back to wearing hats again. Where's the flow? The flow's here. It's not bad, but it's game day. So I've got my Bomber WST hat on today. And that's what will going on. But again, the guys are looking and they're liking some of the underdogs. So let the dogs eat in the UFC on the weekend. All right, we got just over 10 minutes to go. So, Jake, let's dive into this. We had a big trade here yesterday in Winnipeg. Obviously, there was the offer sheets in Edmonton. There's actually been some hockey news lately. It'll be another quiet week, I'm sure, going into Labor Day. But then it's September. It's time to get to training camp and start the season. And all of the NHL season bets are out. No surprise that the Edmonton Oilers are the favorite to win the Stanley Cup at plus 680, followed by the Florida Panthers at plus 750. Some of the other Canadian teams we will get to. Leafs are 16-1. By the way, I think the Leafs, and I think I said this yesterday on the program, but you being a Leaf guy, Matthews as the captain, first of all, I think it was overdue. He's certainly ready to do it right now. I actually think that this is very, very significant for the team. And I think it will help them in the regular season. I think it helps him in the playoffs because I really do think that he will rise to the occasion and be like, he's been the guy, but it's a little different when you got the C on your chest in a place like Toronto. I'm actually pretty high on Matthews in particular and the Leafs. And I mean, listen, we haven't heard a lot about Marner. Marner was the big talk about the first month coming out of the draft. Just a quick thought on Matthews as the captain and the situation they're going into seemingly with Marner playing out his contract and still wanting an extension, but I'm not sure the Leafs are going to be willing to throw out the sort of cash that he will be able to get.
Yeah, listen, I was happy about the Matthews move. It seemed like, I don't know if this was like a saving face or what the deal is, but it seemed like Tavares was part of the process, in going to Trade Living and saying, hey, it might be time for a switch. Tavares obviously on the back half of his career. He's made some great money here in Toronto. He's been a solid captain for the Leafs, but it felt like Matthews' time. There were some rumors that, as they were announcing Matthews becoming the captain, there were some rumors that they were actually ready to give it to him in the summer that they gave it to Tavares. But that's when the whole situation came out where something happened with a police officer or something along those lines, and a little misconduct thing that they weren't ready to quite just hand him over the sea. So, I think it's a good time. He just signed his extension. I know Maddie was trolling me yesterday. I was trolling him back in the chat, but it's all love here in the hockey world. But yeah, no, I'm happy with the move there. In terms of Marner, tough situation. Like, he's got a full no move. So, he would have to waive it even if they put a deal in place. It seems like he's going to play out the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a great season. I don't know what his playoff's going to look like, but he always tends to be a pretty good regular season player. I've been a Marner guy. Obviously, that's been tough in the last couple of years here. If he ends up walking, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Not for Toronto.
It's hard to put a deal in place with a full no move and to get that money off the books and open up cap space for a different type of move. It's not the worst thing in the world. Willie just signed an 8-year deal. So Matthews and Willie are here. If Tavares takes a bit of a pay cut to stick around, that'd be just fine. If he's a 3C, maybe you bring in a 2C next season and you use some of that Marner money to bolster the back end is the hope.
Well, listen, it's always fun to, get everything that you want on free agency day, but I'm not sure that the average fan just understands how important it is to have some semblance of cap flexibility. And we saw the best example of that in years with the Oilers' decisions to walk away from the inflated contracts for Broberg and Holloway and give them the opportunity to put Evander Kane on the LTIR and accrue cap space throughout the year and have a couple more assets. I mean, they're a good enough team that they'll be able to survive the first half of the season with a blue line that probably isn't quite up to cup caliber. But I do think that'll be changed significantly. And next year, for a team like the Leafs, if they all of a sudden have $11 million to spend, I mean, listen, this is a huge market. There's a lot of benefits of playing in Toronto, marketing-wise. They'll have no problem filling that spot on the roster and other spots potentially on the roster with the deeper club spending, throwing that 11 million around. So I'm sort of
that's only Marner's 11 million. Tavares 11 million is coming off the books next year too, and he'd decide not to sign him. We're talking 22 million dollars next year as a possibility of that much.
Oilers better get those guys signed. Oilers better get those guys signed.
Be a damn shame, Huss. Be a damn shame.
Oh man. So staying with the NHL, because as I said, we've got the Cup winners, the other Canadian teams. Edmonton 6, Leafs 16. Vancouver is 22-1. The Jets are 25-1. Ottawa 35-1. And you got to go all the way down to 66-1 for the Calgary Flames. And then there's the Montreal Canadiens at 80-1.
I thought the Canadiens would be cup contenders the way their fans are acting after that Line deal.
Always.
80-1.
We'll see if they make the playoffs. That'll be something we'll get to. Cale Makar, no doubt, is the leader and the favorite for the Norris Trophy. Quinn Hughes, who had that monster season last year, 6-1. I think there's some value on Adam Fox. I know people at Edmonton will be jumping on a Bouchard.
Yeah. And
Bouchard, I mean, the guy is just a point machine. And listen, yes, a good portion of it is being on that power play with McDavid and Draisaitl, but he's a massive part of it. And considering their situation in their blue line this year, I think he's going to be playing 25, 26, 27 minutes a night. I mean, unless they're winning games and they're able to get out. Roman Josi at plus 1250 is attractive. And to be honest, Miro Heiskanen as well. I usually like going a little bit down the list and like making an argument for a guy and getting, a bigger number than just one of the favorites. And I think both of those guys are certainly capable of winning it. Like, I like Heiskanen more than Dobson at 15-1, more than Dahlin at 15-1, Victor Hedman. And here's our guy, Josh Morrissey, who has been in the mix the last couple of years at 25-1. I know there'll be some Jet fans that want to jump on that. Vezina Trophy is interesting. Our guy Helly's got the belt right now, his second Vezina. 3-way tie at 7-1. Hellebuck, Swayman, and Shesterkin for the Vezina. And then 3 10s in Sorokin, Demko, and Ottinger. The one thing I would caution people is Thatcher Demko. Demko, we're hearing more that he has not truly recovered from that injury yet. They're seeking second opinions. They're looking at other goaltenders. So don't be like me and bet J.J. McCarthy to be Offensive Rookie of the Year and then have him go out for the season in the preseason before he even plays it down. You would have the potential of doing that with the Thatcher Demko bet. So stay away from that right now. And then, of course, we've got the winners of the divisions. How are your Leafs looking right now? They're the second favorite. Panthers plus 250. Leafs plus 275. It's been a while since we've seen Boston with a number like that in the division at 5-1. They always seem to find a way to get it done, Jake.
I know. I know. Like every year we look at Boston and we're like, this team's not even going to make the playoffs. Sure enough, they're in the playoffs. They're in a better position than the Leafs. And then it's the classic. I can't stand Leafs Twitter. Going into that round last year, like, oh, come on, you tell me the Leafs are going to lose to this roster. And sure enough, I mean, they did. I know it went to 7 games, but they were down 3-1 in the series. And, they really didn't deserve to win the series. Obviously, they didn't win it at the end of the day. But, yeah, it's always interesting with Boston. To win the division, I don't know, but they'll definitely be in the mix.
Central Division, Dallas is plus 190. The Avs plus 235. Nashville's 4-1. Everyone's horny for Nashville after their spending spree at July 1st. And Jets 7-1 to win the division. Again, keep in mind, they had 110 points last year and were 4th overall in the league. And just, their power play, Rick Bowness said this, if their power play was even league average last year, they're probably winning the President's Trophy. So we'll see if they can get that turnaround. But that's what the Jet number is right now. And here, let's get into this. This is the other interesting one. It's a fun one to talk about, is the Calder Trophy. All the new players into the league. And this Matvei Michkov came over a little earlier than the people expected. He's signed, sealed, and delivered in Philly. He's the favorite at plus 325. And then you got Logan Stankoven. And Stankoven's an interesting pick, Jake, in that, he had that incredible season in the American League, came in late, and then was a huge part of their stretch run and the playoffs, but yet is still rookie eligible. I would suggest that Stankoven maybe has a leg up on everybody else on this list just from how much he played last year, not to mention the success he had on a pretty damn good Dallas team.
Yeah, I like his game a lot. Smaller guy. I like to say he reminds me of myself, maybe a touch better. But no, I really like his game. I was big on Dallas last year. I was hoping they were going to go on a little run. Obviously, they ran into an Edmonton team that was playing great hockey and weren't able to get it done. But, yeah, I think the Stars are I think they're going to have another good year. Don't be surprised if they're top of the Western Conference. And Logan Stankoven has a chance to be a big part of that, possibly playing in the top 6. So, yeah, I'm with you, Huss. A guy who has a little bit of more experience in the NHL. But, yeah, Michkov right now is the favorite at plus 325.
I'm just looking to see if there's a few
Dustin
more.
Wolf, another guy that I don't know how often the goalie wins Calder, but this guy has played in the NHL a bit, and he has a chance. I just don't know how good Calgary's going to be, right?
Well, no doubt. He'll have plenty of opportunity to stop pucks. I'll say that with going into this season.
Oh, there's your boy, Huss. Rucker McGroarty.
We never knew ye. He's going to Pittsburgh. We'll see how it goes. By the way, he comes here. The Pittsburgh at Winnipeg game is the 5th game of the season. So we're not going to have to wait to welcome this entitled little shit back to Winnipeg.
Get some Bronx. I'm sure we'll get some Bronx cheers for.
Dude, I guarantee you, it will be an absolute circus. Like, there's 2 games that you're going to want to watch just for irate fans going nuts. Pittsburgh at Winnipeg on October 20th, and whenever the Anaheim Ducks go to Philadelphia. And Cutter Gauthier. Cutter's
on the list too.
Yeah, sure. He's plus 550. Will Smith and the Sharks is at 8-1. And it goes all the way down. Zeev Bulum. I mean, again, some of these guys may not play in the league this year, but you got 50-1s on Denton Matejchuk's a sneaky guy. He is so talented. I had a great chat with Braden Yeager. We'll have it coming up on WST. Very close with Matejchuk. They both were on Moose Jaw last year, winning the Western Hockey League championships. And when he does get into the league, I think he's going to turn some heads, I should say. And man, 50-1's a pretty nice number for a guy that when he gets into the league is going to be playing a ton. And I think have an opportunity to put up plenty of points. Before we wrap it up, though, we do have the props for every team to make the playoffs, both a yes and a no. No surprise, the Oilers are minus 1250 to make the playoffs. I mean, hell, if they made it last year after the way they started, it's almost inconceivable to think that they won't be there.
Right.
Plus 50 on the no. And obviously the usual suspects are real chalky: Colorado, Dallas, Florida. The Devils, interestingly enough, minus 4.
They're going to be awesome. Because Keith left and now he's the Devils head coach, they're going to be Keith for the Jack Adams, by the way, guys. That's our big pick here at Coolbet.
Wouldn't that be something? Leafs minus 400. Jets are minus 200 to make the playoffs, plus 40 on the no. Not that I subscribe to being the no. The Sens finally turn this shit around? Probably not. Plus 105. You can get minus 145 on them missing the playoffs. Detroit's plus 125. And then, listen, the Blackhawks, I get it, plus 850, bottom of the thing. The San Jose Sharks, they're not even listing a no bet on the Sharks, Blue Jackets, or Ducks. We can basically say they've already missed the playoffs. Like, there's not a number big enough that they could put on the book. 15-1 to make the playoffs for the Sharks or Blue Jackets. Anaheim plus 1250. But I have to laugh at that Montreal number. The Habs plus 640 to make the playoffs into what, year 3, 4 of this rebuild?
Yeah, listen, Habs fans are getting a little big for their britches right now. They haven't, outside of that weird COVID season where we had the Canadian division and they went on the run to the Stanley Cup final, like, they're not very good, Huss. Like, I mean, they have flashes, but like, to win at a consistent level in the NHL, takes a little bit more than what they've been showing as of late. Plus 640 is a big number. Like, they are 5th lowest on the boards in terms of making the playoffs here. So I think if you're a Habs fan, just pump the brakes a bit. The book definitely doesn't think you're ready just yet, and neither do we in Toronto.
And like it's basically double the odds for the Flames to make the playoffs. And I would put those teams in similar situations. One other interesting note, Utah Hockey Club.
Mm-hmm.
It was made some big moves in the offseason. They're plus 175 to do it. Anyways, if you want to kick around the win totals, the point totals, all the awards, it is all up at Coolbet for the National Hockey League. And we probably won't talk a lot about this for the next little bit, but it's always great to get them out right when they get on, trying to get on the good numbers. So there's your lock shop assignment, folks, for the weekend to peruse that and see what you like. But Jake, great stuff. We got a big WST happening. Remus is away. So we're going to get this set up over the next 10 minutes or so. And we'll fire out that pick later on. But for you lock shoppers that are with us, I'm pretty sure I'm leaning Brady Oliveira on the over 85.5 yards. Don't forget the partner parlay is up in the Coolbet combo cards, as well as for the community. If you just want to ride with the Bombers and the Elks, that's up with a nice boost as well. The UFC, make that $25 bet. It's the UFC free bet promo. You'll get a free $25 bet on Coolbet on Monday. And other than that, have a great weekend, everybody. Jake, thanks for doing this. And I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, last thing I'll say is Penny just got it to 2 under. He's got 3 birdies through 6 holes today. And hopefully he can keep climbing the leaderboard. Right now he's projected for 26, so that's good enough for the Tour Championship. Just got to stay, just keep making birdies, Penny.
And listen, and there is so much on the line. Like, making the Tour Championship is more than, I think you get into all the majors next year. Things that obviously he did have the win, but he's been a great story. And Corey Connors, by the way, trying to get into that top 30. He's at 6 under right now, a very nice spot. He's projected, if he gets T3, 21. He'll be 21, which is nice, but he needs to be up sort of in that top 5, I think. And it's late night for our pal Adam Hadwin after a tough one yesterday. Folks, good luck with all your bets this weekend. Thanks for hanging out. We'll send you back over to EST, and we'll see you Monday in the lock shop. Thanks, Jake.
That was Andrew Hustler Paterson and James Bolin Moss from Coolbet Canada. I'm Zachary Kubish, and yeah, that'll about wrap it up for our programming here this week. No oil stream today, but the next live show will be on Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Murray McCourt and Curtis Stock here back in the AST Global studio for the VIP Golf Show. They'll have 5 guests with Matt Freeman, Kevin Smith from Alberta Golf, Jax Plouffe, Jeff Cuthbertson, as well as Kevin Chow. And then later in the day at 4 o'clock, it will be the Elks Green and Gold kickoff show with Matthew Wannick and glue guy Jay Milne down from Century Casino, where they'll be lining up the action for the Elks, possibly finding 4 wins in a row for the first time since 2017. Long time coming against a hard-nosed team in the Alouettes. So that's sure to be a fun game, but that's all we got for right now and the rest of Friday today here at Edmonton Sports Talk. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend as well. Thank you so much for tuning into the Lock Shop. Good show as always, boys, and have a great rest of your day.